Welcome to Not a Great Whisper podcast, where we interview ordinary people living extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Katy Rey, a fierce leader in the community, empowering people to own their story and embrace everything they are. Please welcome my guest today, Mitzi Ocasio. Did I say it right?
Ocasio. Yeah, you got it right.
She's the host of Let's Think About It podcast, and author, and all the things. I'll let her share that with you. But I am so excited to have you on.
No, I really am excited to have you on too. Having you on my show, we had such a good chemistry, such a good vibe. It was just so easy to just have a conversation when I was even going through our episode. I was just like, goodness, I had such a great time. She's my new forever friend. I don't care. Exactly. We're social forever friends.
So where are you located, Mitzi?
I'm out in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee area. And I'm actually originally from out here. And I kind of like branched out because I got tired of the small town, small like perspective, frame of mind. And I just I felt like I had to break away from my family that I felt like was like hovering over me and just taking the life out of me. You know what I mean? Because at that point in my life, they just wanted to conform me to be an image of what they expected me to be versus what I wanted to be. You know what I mean? So I branched out. I moved to Florida. I was out there for a while and for a few years out in Orlando and out in the Fort Pierce area on the east side. So I'm very familiar with Florida. And I enjoyed it and I found myself again, and then that's when I got into writing. I started writing and I was like, you know what, maybe I should start a podcast because podcast was arising at the time. And then I moved to Texas. And when I moved out there, I was just like, yeah, this is the direction I need to go. I need to do something bigger and better. And then that's when I decided to publish my first children's books, because I felt like this was a direction to help the younger generations to start thinking about things differently. And I felt like children's books is the best way because it doesn't just help the children think differently or start thinking in a different perspective. It helps the parents too, because as a parent, you read these books to these children and you're like, you have to think about it with them. You know what I mean? So that's why I felt like this was the right direction for me, is to write books and to do my podcast, because I think way too much. I think way too much. And anybody who knows me personally knows that I'm extreme sometimes, and you can only handle me in certain increments sometimes, you know what I mean? And I just have one of those personalities that's like, you either get me or you don't get me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just me. Huh?
What made you move back?
My mom, because when I moved to Texas, my mom moved to Texas too, because she felt like Texas was too big of a state for me to live by myself with. So she moved out there with her stepdad and they were having issues and they were like, well, just move back with us to Wisconsin. And since I really wasn't really making friends and I wasn't really, you know what I mean? I liked my job. I kept my job, but I just didn't, the vibe wasn't really what I liked. You know what I mean? Like everybody feels comfortable in their way. And Texas, the way things are set up there is just way different. You know what I mean? Especially coming from Florida, where Florida's like a no man's land. You know what I mean? Like laws are so different in Florida
Florida and Texas are kind of like this, coming up at the same now.
But
how old are your kids? Do you have two?
Yeah, I have two kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh, yeah. And it takes a village, girl. So
I know, exactly. So that's why I moved back. My sister's here. She has her five kids. So it just made sense. And, that's kind of a little bit about me.
Yeah, like, how did you grow up knowing, because I think as young girls, we're kind of told like, oh, don't ask questions, just go with this and listen to, like, how did you kind of find yourself and not worry about, like you wanted to open your mind, you wanted to understand things, you wanted to ask questions. Like, how did you find that for yourself? And like, what age did you realize, like, I don't care what other people are saying to me?
Yeah, it took a while, because you're absolutely right. We are brought up thinking like, hey, you're prettier, quieter, más bonita se ve, silencio, you know what I mean? So it's like, I've always had to be that people pleaser because that's where people always wanted me to be. And that's where my family always wanted me to be too. So it took me until I was probably like 16, 17 years old, maybe even 18, maybe pushing it if a little later. But that's as soon as I graduated high school, I literally left the house. Like not even like a week before my 18th birthday, I found an apartment and
I
I was, you know what I mean? And I was just like, deuces, because I just like, I couldn't deal with it anymore because I think once you start questioning your family environment and you start questioning the reason why people in your family do and act and move a certain way, then you start to realize that a lot of it comes to manipulation, a lot of it comes to fear, a lot of it comes to loneliness, and a lot of it comes from generational trauma that they just continue to pass down and they don't know how to break the cycle. They don't know what to do with that information. So it's time for you to be like, stop. So it's like, it's okay to be the black sheep. I promote being the black sheep all day, every day. Be the one that stands your ground and speaks your mind because I rather have people walk on eggshells around me to know how to talk to me and act around me versus me having to walk around eggshells around other people because I have to make sure that I am pleasing them. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny because now that I moved back, I'm strong, I'm fearless, and I know who I am more than I've ever been before. And my sisters, one of my sisters hates it.
oh,
Absolutely hates it. She,
selfie.
you know what I mean? Because it's just like now, and she's the oldest. You know what I mean? So it's like she's one of those I feel superior because I'm older and I've been through more than you with with our parents. But then it's like you're not wise. You didn't learn from your mistakes. You're continuing to make the same mistakes my parents made. And it sucks because they made two separate mistakes by themselves and then also together. And you are now doing both and together all at once. And it's like, really?
Break
But
cycles.
yeah.
Break
Yeah.
cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so seeing that now you have a more sense. I always say like healed people. I think Alex Eel said this, healed people heal people. So it's like you just continue on your path and you don't really worry about what's going on over there, right? Like you just
Oh, at this point, I realize that once I start coming to the point where I feel the need to attach myself or I start to care what people think about me, or I start to feel self-conscious or feel intimidated, I remind myself, who is that person? Who is that person? They still have to eat. They still have to poop. They still have to sleep. They still have to do the basic necessities that every human being does. So what makes them better than me? Whatever that I choose to tell myself about that person is what I choose to believe is going to be better than them. But if I see them as just a even playing field, as the same human being as me, then at the end of the day, you are no better than me. You are the same as me. So I am not better than you because I see you as the same.
yeah.
You got to have that equal perspective. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I feel like it just that comes from experience and just seeing people and wanting to learn more about people and wanting to understand where their belief system comes from and like what they
Exactly.
yeah, and
Exactly. You got to have
like,
that into
talk about
perspective.
it. Yeah, like just like you're like let's think about it. I love that piece because I think all of us learn from each other and that's why I always want to know where people's where you formed your open-mindedness. So when did you start writing children's books?
I started writing children's books probably around 2020 and yeah, around COVID time.
So
Because
before the kid, before your kid.
yeah, yeah, actually before the kiddos, I felt it in my spirit to write. You know what I mean? Like I needed to, I mean, I lived in Georgia for some time. And I used to like talk to my ex at the time about, oh, I want to write. And he would dismiss it and be like, for what? Why? But he was ignorant. You know what I mean? I can say that now, but he was the type of person that he was just proud of getting out of the projects. You know what I'm saying? He had very minimal goals and standards for himself. So to think anything past already getting out of those goals was kind of irrelevant to him. And there's a lot of people like that. You know what I mean? So at that point, that's when I wanted to start writing and random people, strangers. I would be at the gas station and a random lady would come up to me and she would tap me on my shoulder and she's like, hey, you should start writing. And then walk away into the gas station or walk away to her car and drive away and just like nothing. I'm just like, that's random. You know what I mean? But it's just like, it made me realize that God speaks through other people. Yeah, exactly. Like so weird. And then it just kept happening more and more. And I kept on like when I would watch like motivational speakers or sermons and things like they would just bring up writing and I was just like, goodness, Mitzi, have a V8, you know what I mean? Like take the clue and realize that I need to start writing. So then I started writing my novel, and I'm still working on my novel. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's a long process, but that was back in 2019. I started working on my novel, and 2020 I was just like, I need to do something that'll at least put my foot out in the door to know that I can do this. So I was like, I can do it by just doing a children's books because it's smaller. You know what I mean? It's more realistic in my mind.
Yeah. I got you.
Exactly. So
impact. Yeah. No, I have a children's book and a book, so I get it.
yeah. So exactly. You already know, girl.
You feel when that project's done, you're like, oh wait, I can do this. Yeah, I feel you.
Exactly. You get that little like joy, like, oh, I can do this. Like,
but you've done multiple. You have how many?
I have 3 children's books now. I'm still working on a series that I want to finish, and then one more that I want to do. But the problem is that I really need to get this novel out. So my goal is like, I've pushed everything aside where I'm focusing on the novel, and I'm halfway through where it's like the last draft part, you know what I mean? Before you send it to the editors and the publishing and all that good stuff. So I'm in like halfway through part, and it feels good knowing that you're working on it, knowing that one day someone will open this book and not only feel relieved, but feel connected in a way. You know what I mean?
Always love writing?
No. No, in school. See, that's the thing. I've always, because I never had a good educational system. Because when I was really, really young, we always moved around. Every year we moved around. There wasn't a time where I was stable at all. Like I went to 8 grade schools, like 8 different middle schools and 3 different high schools. And then there was a point where I wasn't even in school for a whole almost 3 months. So, you know what I mean? So for me, education was never important because it was never showed to me that it was important because my parents just moved around as they felt like it. You know what I mean?
What was the reason for moving so much? Jobs?
No, instability, I guess is the better word to say. Instability and just not breaking that chain of that instability. And unfortunately, you know, having that gypsy mindset of it's okay, just pack up, leave and move. You could find yourself again, all over again. You know what I mean? And never creating roots. That's the only thing that I wanted growing up was just roots and stability. So for me, growing up, when it came to education and learning how to write was never something that I strive for. I hated anything to do with school. Like I cheated my way to get to pass, you know, just so I can make it through. And now that, when people were telling me, oh, I should start writing, it threw me off because I'm like, why? Why would I write? Because I believe that writing was dead because that was something that I was taught, you know what I mean? That I understood and that I interpret it to be. So I never thought about writing because in my mind, I already disclosed it, done deal. Writing's dead. Nobody reads books anymore. Everybody wants a movie. Everybody wants a TV show. Nobody likes, you know what I mean? Nobody actually likes that stimulation from actually reading. But people don't realize reading brings a different type of visualization. And especially if you get the right writer, oh my goodness, you're there. You can literally be there in the book and see everything. That's the reason why I was so mad in 50 Shades of Grey when they made the movie. It's not how my Christian Grey looked. My Christian Grey was handsome and sexy.
So for your novel, what is it about?
I don't want to give too much away, but basically,
what can you tell me at least like fiction, nonfiction?
It's fantasy fiction.
Cool.
It's most definitely fantasy.
Don't surprise us. You're good.
Yeah. No. Well, I could just say this a little bit because I have been saying it to a few other different podcast shows that I've been on, but it's basically about finding the disgrace between the characters. Because the problem with disgrace is that nobody feels like they have it, but they know how to point it out. So the point while you're reading the book, you're supposed to find all of the disgraceful moments that happens between each and every single character, because in reality, when you read the book, you think it's okay, but it's not okay. That's its form of disgrace. That's also a form of disgrace. So, you know, my book has a lot of twists and turns, and that's why I say it's a fantasy, but it also has chunks of my real life in it. You know what I mean? Parts of moments that I've lived. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of crazy Because when I had my mom read a certain section, she was like, wow, I can't believe these characters went through that. And I was like, well, Ma, I actually went through that. She's like, stop it. And I was like, yeah, that's something that I actually experienced and went through. And she's like, I had no idea. So it's just like, I don't know. That's
That's
a little
so
bit about my
cool.
book.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait. Oh, you're going to finish it. You've done great. Don't worry about timing. There's no specific timing on anything. That's my advice to you today. But what's
In
your
my mind, there's always timing.
and you are very driven and you're very open-minded. You love to learn. What is some advice you give to people like in their journey and really any season? Like what is something that's helped you stay who you are? No
um,
pressure.
no, it's a thinker. You know what I mean? That's the beauty. You know what I mean?
No
Hold on,
pressure.
wrong side. We're gonna think about it. um, Honestly, I think reconnecting back to God. I think once you reconnect back to God, wherever your faith is, because I had my moments where I was disconnected from God. And I think reconnecting back to God and maintaining a relationship is so much better than in maintaining it and like a knowledge of him. You know what I mean? Because when you know him, it's like, no, yeah, I know air is there, but until you realize how important air is for you to breathe and to be alive, then you won't understand the gravity of needing air. And that's how I feel with God, is that every time I feel disconnected or out of place or frazzled in my season, it's usually because I'm not going back to God and I'm not connecting with him on a daily basis where I need to, or I'm not recognizing him. And I think that's the problem with life, is that we have gotten so comfortable with getting our needs met by society and what the world can offer you, that's when the frustrations and the anxiety comes, is that when the world and society doesn't meet those needs that you want at a specific time, you get upset, you get fearful, you get overwhelmed. And that's when God's like, well, I'm doing that on purpose so that you could come back to me and rely on me. So when you go back to him and rely on him, it's like a different sense of peace and everything comes back together again. So it's just like when people, so it's like, I'm like those old people,
No,
pray on it.
no, it's lived experience, right? Like when you lost your way, when you found your way back. I think that's really powerful. And I love people's journey. What's something other than the novel, what's something else you're working on?
I went back to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going back to school for accounting. So I'm kind of like in school right now while doing everything else. And that's kind of like my side project. And everybody in my family thinks it's weird that I'm going for accounting when I do what I do on the side for my hobbies, like with writing and my podcast and my and everything on my website. But it's like money is something that you are always going to have to deal with. And there are always going to be companies that are always going to need somebody to manage and handle their money. And so there's always going to be an accounting department. They may take away their service department. They may take away their sales department. They may take away their interaction with physical people nowadays, because now we're all seeing that everything's moving to AI and technology. You have to kind of put yourself in a position where you are now needed. You know what I mean? They kind of you kind of get that revealed during COVID situation versus the essential versus non-essential workers, when who is really essential. The essential workers are the ones that are going to be needed 24/7 in any field. And I feel that right now, accounting, technology, those are areas where are never going to have a drop. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's just my safety net.
Well, I love that. A safety net on top. I love that you have all these things you're working on. And as a mom with young kids, how do you
Yes.
balance that?
I think my biggest thing is a planner, and using the planner and scheduling time. I even have to schedule time to shower. I have to schedule time to like have with my family. And I think the reason why I do that is because if not, I get so focused in one area and that I forget about the rest. You know what I'm saying? Like if I don't time myself and keep myself on a schedule, then it's just I do what I please and I go off of my emotions. And I think too many people do that. They live off of the emotions and they go, oh, how do I feel right now? Oh, I feel like chilling. So I'm just going to chill and relax and just do this. But it's like, no, what do you need to get done? How important are your goals? Do you really want to lose weight or are you not? I mean, do you really want to see that dream happen or not? So it's just like people don't realize that if you want something, you really have to go for it. You have to ask yourself how bad you want to go for it. So time management is one of the biggest things because I want to manage my time with my children, but I also want my children to know that you have to respect mommy's time and you have to learn things on your own. Like if I was always up their asses, excuse me, we're crazy. Oh, we curse. Okay, cool. Like if I was literally always up my children's asses all the time, like at their beck and call every time, what are they learning? They're not learning any type of self-sufficient skills that they need to be as an adult. And I'm raising boys to be men. And I don't want no pussy ass boys. You know what I mean? I don't want them to be no pussy ass men because goodness, I'm a female. I'm a
I
female. I know how that is to be around men that are just like, ugh, who raised you? Why do you think this
I'm
is a way
gonna
of thinking?
actually agree to disagree. You
That's
do
fine.
are more sensitive and attached to their feelings so they don't internalize it. I
Well,
don't
yeah.
know about I wouldn't ever describe anything as raising anybody as a pussy ass man because the word pussy is actually very strong because we have one of the strongest anatomy pieces in the world. But I like to do that with Gus to let you know, like, I think
No.
let's talk about it. Let's think about it. I think shifting that verbiage too is they're not weak if they do ask for help. And support is a really big thing. Because I work with a lot of men doing the work as children, they were taught that they are weak if they ask for help or they don't, or they are supported. So now they're doing the work now to heal themselves from childhood. So I think it's really important for strong women to empower the boys. And I'm very big at talking about because they come from a society that pushes such a toxic masculinity narrative of you are weak if you do certain things. So I think opening your mind a little bit more to that, because culturally we were taught that. And it's really important that we allow the boys to actually hone in on that because they actually become super strong when they're able to get their feelings and understand their feelings rather than keep them in because I have to be this strong man all the time. So I think it's a good thing for you to let's talk about
No,
it.
I absolutely agree. No, but I thank you for correcting my verbiage because you are right. That was wrong to say that word, and that's the reason why I love talking with people because it reminds you of like, wait a second, you got to change that word for another word because you're right. Because in reality, I'm not teaching my kids to suppress their emotions because I'm not like I'm one of those like, okay, you feel sad, now we know why you're sad. So when you were breaking it down, like you know what, you're right, that was the wrong word.
Yeah.
That because it takes away the credibility of what I'm actually doing is letting him express themselves to the fullest degree, but knowing, okay, now shift it, let's do something better or continue on because you're absolutely right. There are too many men that can't cry or that can't express themselves because of fear. And that's one thing I don't want. And as a woman, I think it's also important that we need to remember that we can't see men in that matter anymore. So I thank you. I thank you for that. Thank you for
Girl.
breaking it down in a different way because
I know you got
sometimes
mind. I know you
no,
got
I did. Yeah, I like because it sucks because sometimes I have it, but the verbiage isn't there. Like I still need to read a dictionary every day to get the right words because
also
sometimes the words aren't there.
it's also how we grew up. So it's just us,
Yeah.
right, every day. And that's a perfect example of how we can talk about like how but every day we're learning and we're growing from each other. And I think more people should have conversations like this, like where 1 second, let's shift it and let's see if you do use different words, how that will be portrayed to your boys. I have a boy and two girls. I mess up a lot. But they know that I'll be like, I'm human, messed up. But I do that because as when we were kids, we didn't get to see that.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't.
Like just adults owning their shit.
Yeah, that was not one thing that we see. It was really weird to see that, or if anything, you know what I mean? And it made you
Like, wait,
question.
what? Is this a trick?
Right? Exactly. Like, is this happening? Because we're so used to seeing our parents as like superheroes, like indefeatable. And then it's just one day that we realize like, oh no, they're just humans just trying to survive. They're just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out as we go along.
Or
And like,
we.
yeah, exactly. We're just trying to figure it out together. Let's hold hands and let's do this race together. But yeah, I love that. That's why I also love talking to people because we forget that words really have a whole value. And I think when we talk to other people, like we're doing right now, you really get to see that one word can do a whole spiral of a turn that you weren't even meaning. Like I didn't mean to mean in that way when in reality I'm doing the opposite. It's just that I'm so used to that word. So you know what I mean? So exactly like we are so used to that. And it's like, well, goodness, Mitzi, now I know.
Let's think about it.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's think about
Where
it.
can we find you? Tell all the listeners where we can find you.
You can find me directly on mitzythinking.com, my website. You find all the goodies where you can find my special guests on my podcast show and all the goodness that they offer, like Katy. And then you can find my blogs and my children's books. And I'm thinking about doing a giveaway for my children's books. Hopefully in October. I keep pushing it back because of life. So hopefully October this year, I will be doing a giveaway. So if you know a family or a school or an organization that may be needing children's books, you know what I mean? Nominate them and send them my direction. And hey, you never know, you might win some free books.
Oh, cool. And good for outreach for the book. So it's mitzythinkinc.com. And then anything you want to leave the listeners with, a little Mitzi love. What?
Um, Let me think about that.
No pressure.
Right? No pressure. No pressure.
I keep getting her own questions.
I know, right? Goodness. I think the best thing to remember is yes, to keep an open mind, to have that open perspective, because you never know what's blocking you from actually correcting a mistake that you never made or that was passed down on you, like we just seen right now on this show. You know what I mean? I made a mistake. Thankfully, Katy was so genuine and honest.
Something you learned. I just wanted to give you a different viewpoint.
No, but that's a perfect example because people don't take that into consideration. If I was a closed-minded individual, I would have rejected it and be upset, and the whole entire rest of the conversation would have been ruined. You know what I mean? Exactly, awkward. So it's just having that open perspective and just allowing what people tell you in and sit with it and marinate it and see where it fits in your life. And it may not mean something right now to you, but later on down the road, it will. You know what I mean? You got to remember different seasons require different parts of you, requires different knowledge. You know what I mean? So sometimes you can have something that happened 2 years ago, let's say a dream that's preparing you for something that's going to happen down the road, but you didn't realize it until now where you're getting closer to it and you're like, oh, my dream is going to come true. You know what I mean? Or something's going to happen. So it's just like always having that open perspective.
And that's your goal. Let's think about it.
Exactly. Just think about it.
Well, you're amazing. You can find Mitzi on Not a Great Whisperer podcast page, katyray.com, @TheRealKRay. You were a pleasure to interview today. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. Keep kicking butt, and we are so excited to see what you do.
Thank you. Bye, you guys.